everybody, what's going on? This is Tony, and welcome to another episode of Tony Flying Solo. This is episode 21. This is our April episode, and I just want to welcome a very special guest. I've been telling you guys for months that he was going to be joining me, and he's finally here. My cousin, expert on a lot of alien stuff, Danny Amaral. Say what's up, buddy.
Hey, how you guys doing?
I'm excited, man, because we've been talking about this podcast for months, and it's just a challenge for us to get together. So we finally made it happen, and it's going to be a good time.
It's been a lot of pressure, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, you're always like, what should I talk about? I got to get my facts together. But you know enough just in general conversation, and I think we feed off each other really well. So yeah, let's talk for a second about why you and I are so into aliens. Like, what do you think it is, man?
I just think it's just the mystery, you know.
Yeah.
We just love that stuff, and I think, I don't know, it's crazy. We kind of, you kind of have to wake up and open your mind to new possibilities to even begin to think about that stuff. So,
right,
without scaring you, because
right.
It can be pretty fucking scary.
Yeah.
If you think about it. But acceptance and tolerance and stuff like that, and it's just one of those things. I think we both like that stuff. So
yeah, I think we both like the mystery, like not knowing and trying to figure out what's real and isn't real. For me, I think it's interesting because my new wife, everybody, you guys know I just got married.
Yeah.
Danny was there.
I was there.
Had a good time. And I think it's interesting because my wife, Becca, anytime I bring up aliens to her, she looks at me like I have something wrong with me. And
I know, me too, man.
like, I know your wife's the same way.
Oh, Beth is the worst.
It's just like, you bring up aliens and they're like, oh, that's cool, you're talking about aliens. I'm like, oh, what a loser. But at the same time, it's like, and I always ask her, I'm like, do you believe in aliens or not? Like, and she always says the same thing, and it drives me up the fucking wall. She always goes, well, I haven't given it enough thought. That doesn't make any sense. It's not if you haven't thought about it or haven't.
One way or the other.
Do you or do you not? It's like Santa Claus. Do you believe or you don't? You know what I mean? So, she's kind of, feels the same way about ghosts and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's a very frustrating situation for me, but whatever.
But that's why we have each other.
Exactly. She watches, The Bachelorette and friggin', Real Housewives of whatever stupid state they're from, and I watch alien stuff, ancient aliens and movies, and it's fascinating. So I think originally what kind of got us into this was stuff like everybody I think on this podcast knows by now that like I've mentioned you numerous times that like we bonded over the Predator.
Oh man,
and extraterrestrial.
Tons of comic books about that and drawings and everything.
I think I have like houses worth of drawings and comic books just on that subject. And then of course when we were growing up, who can forget the X-Files?
Oh, they're the best show.
One of the best shows
in
ever.
high school. I think that's when we were watching it. Yeah,
and I feel like that's when that subject of like UFOs was still very like taboo. Like people didn't really want to talk about it, but it was on TV, so it was like whatever. But a lot of stuff is actually coming out now that I think it's mostly because of the internet and how information can be shuffled around and shared with different people. And I think people that have known a lot about this stuff for years are becoming a lot more brave to talk about it, because they feel like everybody should know. It's 2016.
Yeah,
like,
and given a lot more credit too as well.
Exactly. It's not like, it's not the 60s where, something crashes in Roswell and then they cover it up because it's just like unheard of.
And no one can find out about it because the media wasn't as big then.
Exactly. That's
you couldn't even have premarital sex back then. Never mind an alien crash.
Yeah, man. If you wanted to have sex, you had to put a hole in the sheets.
That's right.
so
watch out, teddy bears.
Yeah, seriously. So let's talk about that. So I mean, I think the one thing that really fascinates me is a guy that you turned me on to. Is Dr. Stephen Greer.
Yeah.
Talk about Dr. Stephen Greer and like how you found out about him and what he does in his role and stuff.
Well, I think I feel like when I first found out about him, I think it was probably last year or 2 years ago, and I'm obsessed with this alien thing and learning more about it. So I would search YouTube videos, and if you type in anything alien on YouTube, you can find a myriad of different things. I mean, talking about what types there are and where they're from and all these people and eyewitness documents and all this other stuff. And this guy kept coming up on my YouTube feed when I would search for aliens. And it always had a ton of hits. You
Right.
know, it wasn't like 5,000 hits or 200 hits, and it was stuff that from quite a long time ago, probably 5 to 10 years ago, that his stuff started coming out on YouTube. So it wasn't like it was published a long time ago. So it wasn't like this was new stuff. It was new to me, but
Right.
it was out there for a while, and I just didn't really hear about it. So thank God for YouTube. It came around. I was able to find the stuff. So he's a guy who had a troubled childhood. And that kind of doesn't really lend too much credence to what we're going to talk about.
Really credibility, but putting that aside.
Putting that aside, keep an open mind. He became
he's
a
also
doctor.
a brilliant doctor.
He's a brilliant doctor. He's a surgeon.
Yeah.
He's an ER doc down in Virginia, and he always loves to bring it up. If you ever listen to any of his YouTube videos, he brings that up pretty much numero uno. The first thing he talks about, I'm just a country doctor. That's all he says.
Right.
I'm just a country doctor from Virginia. And I didn't ask for this, and I think he had experiences in his younger days with really strange phenomena that has happened, and I believe that kind of led him to where he is today, to the point where now he is not a doctor anymore, and he does full-time UFOlogy. He goes around and starts talking. He does tons of things all over the world, actually, internationally.
Yeah.
Speaks about this phenomenon.
Well, you can talk about that too. Like when he, the experiences that he had as a kid. There was something I remember watching a video where he talked about how he, got really sick for some reason. He was in the hospital, and he started like. He said he was in this weird place mentally where he wasn't like coherent, but he was kind of like in between that. It felt like he was almost dying.
Like an out of body, yeah.
Yeah, like he said he had this out of body experience, and ever since then he's been very aware of like his consciousness and where it is, and very into meditation and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because of that, he said that ever since then he's taken meditation very seriously, and that has opened up all these like doorways to like the things that he. Like his contact with them and they're actually responding, and it sounds really like out there and it sounds really trippy, but if you watch his videos and you listen to him, he explains it with such clarity that it actually makes a lot of sense. Where if I explain it, I just sound like I'm losing my mind.
Oh yeah.
So you know what I mean? I mean it's hard for me to explain it when I haven't really experienced it myself.
No, I mean I wish I could explain it the way he does. I mean he has such great detail.
He does.
And it's not just about aliens. It's also about the cover up by the government. And not all the stuff do I believe or can I even keep that all in my mind and kind of work through all of it. But a lot of the stuff makes sense if you believe that the government is sometimes shady in what they do. And I would suggest anyone who's just interested in any of that, just type in Dr. Stephen Greer one time in YouTube and just listen to 5 to 10 minutes of what he has to say. And if it's something that you're interested in, you may want to listen for the whole time. But if not, then you can just X out right there, But he gets in such detail that it's very mind blowing, and it opens your mind to even more possibilities that I didn't even think was. I didn't even realize that could be something,
Right.
And it's almost too fascinating, and it's almost too fantastical to even think that this stuff is real. But if it is, wow, what a crazy,
if it is
mind fuck, I'll tell you.
It's kind of screwed up if some of the stuff is crazy, because we've had the wool pulled over our eyes for years if this stuff is actually happening. And I mean, and the other thing is like he's got numerous death threats from a lot of people to stop talking, which makes this stuff even more real. Like if it wasn't real, no one would care. But he's got like people with high level like government security clearance that have been willing to give their names. Some people have given him information but don't want their names released because they're afraid something's going to happen to them or their families. Also, he also has, I forgot what he calls it, but it's something set up that if he dies, like all this information gets automatically released.
I forgot what that's called. It's called a death trigger or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, he's got a bunch of stuff that he still hasn't talked about that will just be like automatically released to the public. So it is frightening to think if this stuff is real, that the government is hiding it from us. Like, that he's talked about how there are aliens that are actually working with like deep deep, like dark secret, sectors of the government where like, humans and aliens have been working together for years.
Yeah, since he says since like 1943.
Yeah, it's insane. And believe it or not, I mean, when I obviously the X-Files are kind of bringing this back. We were when the first episode of the new X-Files came out, and I watched that, and it was like taking place in the 1940s, and then it was fast forward today, and they had like that ship that was completely invisible, and then it shows them finding that alien out there that they ended up killing and stuff like crawling through the desert. Like, if that to me was too much or too close to what Dr. Stephen Greer always talks about.
Always talks about it. Was crazy.
Like I'm watching that and I'm like, this is the videos that I watch on YouTube. It's like they watched the YouTube videos and just filmed it.
I'm telling you, I feel like they took that script right from what he says and they used that as the basis of their new season.
It was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I'm talking to Jim about it because Jim is a huge X-Files fan, and Don, and I was like. And it's funny because I was like, yeah, man, the episode was great. And then I'm like, it's the same stuff like Dr. Stephen Greer talks about. And they're like, yeah, I'm going to hang up now because I don't like you're out of your mind. But it's like, you got to take the time to listen to the guy.
You do.
And just like have an open mind. That really is what it is. If you just automatically turn off, then everything's going to be bullshit. But I mean, there's so many different. It is kind of convoluted when you go on YouTube. You don't know what's real and what isn't. But this guy has had a constant following, and he's pretty reputable. So
he does those international talks. I mean, it's not like
thing.
he's doing it in front of 20, 30 people at a local food hall.
Yeah,
at a veteran center.
He's going to be at the library on the block for an hour or top.
Yeah, kids welcome. No,
kids welcome.
No, he's doing it internationally, and he's trying to promote what his true message is. Even though he talks about everything in the government and whatnot, his true message really is acceptance and learning how to. Not believe in what the government's trying to pull over your eyes, like saying something like, they make all these movies like Will Smith's movie, Independence Day. It's meant to bring up images of a world war against aliens. Now, he ventures to say that the government has allowed these movies to kind of flourish. Because what they want is a one world, and this is getting a little bit too far into Illuminati stuff, but a one world government where they control everything, and the fact that they don't want us to have contact with anything outside of our world because then it takes the power away from them.
Right.
And then he also goes on to say it's because of the energy crisis we all worry about. Our commitment to oil and our dependence on oil.
Well, that was the whole thing. The Sirius documentary they released. Like, if you guys want to watch something, it's Sirius, Sirius. You can.
It's on Netflix. It's like a number one rated.
Is it really now on Netflix?
Yep.
Yeah. So, but it was excellent. I mean, and they found a little like it was like a
humanoid alien.
It's literally like
bone structure.
What is it, like 6 inches?
Yeah, it's very small.
It's very small. They found it, and they can't still describe the DNA makeup of it. Like it is partly human, but it's not. So it was really interesting to see that. And then he also he talks about the energy crisis and how the government could give us free energy because they've already figured out how to do it because of alien technology and stuff like that we have that they don't want to release. But if they do that, the stock market is going to crash. Oil businesses are going to go down under, and it's going to be like the Great Depression. So that's why they haven't done it. They just continue to let us like live in this government-controlled world where
almost like the Matrix in a way.
Yeah, exactly. Where we have no control over that, and everything is not as it seems. So, I mean, it is really crazy. I don't know. It's just mind blowing. Take a look at that. There was that other thing in the documentary where they talked about the car that at one point there was a guy who had designed a car that could run just on water.
Yeah.
And then he was killed, and then the plans were lost, and nobody's figured that out since. Like, a car that can run on water.
Oh, people have figured it out. And he also talks about, when going back to the free energy thing, is that there have been people who have, and it's called the 0-point energy field, right? So basically, the simplified way to talk about it is there's energy, electromagnetic energy all around us all the time. Mm-hmm. And some people have harnessed that energy and built something to literally vacuum it and use it. And it's an unlimited amount of energy. It's always around us. And he says, and I don't remember the specific quote, but it's like a cubic inch of 0 point energy can fuel your house and everything in your house for a year, pretty much.
Right.
And if you think about how much oxygen and space really that we have around us, think about the type of energy consumption or the type of energy storage we have all around us at one time. And there have been people over the years, and he says since 1943, 45, we've had this technology since Roswell. And if you don't know what Roswell is, it's when that an alien spaceship crashed in Roswell, New Mexico.
Right.
Since then, we've had that technology, and they have stifled it because it's all about the big corporations and them not being able to control what we do. Right. And they control everything, the money, how much money's worth, how much you use for oil, because everyone has so much money in oil. And if we didn't have to depend on oil anymore, what would that do to our infrastructure? And in some ways, they I can't fault them for saying, let's not put this stuff out, because that would ruin the world's economy in a day or two.
It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that movie Chain Reaction with Keanu Reeves. They split the water, the hydrogen atom, and they figure out like, oh my god, like we could have unlimited energy just on that. I mean, and he's like Morgan Freeman's like stock markets would plummet all over the world, stuff like that. Same concept.
Yeah, but think about this too. Think about religion. I know that
Well, that's obvious too. If you look in Ancient Aliens, touch upon that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it. If the government came out and said, hey, listen, there are many species of alien that we've been in contact with them for years. What would that do to organized religion? Would that, I mean, I think the Pope has come out and said something like he believes that there has to be, extraterrestrials out there. And I think that's a good step forward for organized religion. But I think there are still a lot of people who have just literally shunned the idea of anything outside of our small planet. I mean,
right.
Billions and billions of stars, and I think there's something called the Drake formula or the Drake equation that was invented by somebody. I don't know who it was, like a mathematician or someone who basically identifies and works through how many stars are out there potentially. What's the percentage of Earth-like planets that could have life on them and support with the moon and the sun and whatnot, and it gives you, and it is billions that could be out there in the entire. I mean, because space is never ending.
As far as we know, yeah.
As far as we know, and physicists have said, because it just kind of just wraps around. But then you have to think about, and this is where my mind goes blank.
Where does that
trying
end?
To think, where does it end?
Yeah, that's a mind fuck right there.
For me, like when I think of it like a circle, right? So that, from what I've heard, and in my mind is as far as I can go. Yeah. Like I think of it as a circle in space time. It goes around in a circle, and you can look as far as you want in either direction, but it just goes around in a big circle. But what happens outside of that?
Outside of that,
but what and then this
and what's after that?
Yes,
and after that, I just can't. My mind like stops thinking,
and then I can't. Yeah. I'm done. I have to go to sleep.
Yeah. Oh, right.
I have to stop thinking, or else my brain's gonna crash.
Right. No, stuff like that always like would freak me out. When somebody says like. Even that, like, you get into religion where they say, like, oh, when you go to heaven, it's just like eternity. And then you think about that for a second, and you're like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah. There's got to be an end to that. There's got to be an end. But it's weird, man. It really is weird. And there's the whole space thing, like I always used to enjoy the end of, like, the Men in Black movie where, like, they do, like, that fade out.
Yep.
And you see, like, this monster put marbles into a bag, and that's the universe. And then what is he in? And it's just, like, it's a mind fuck for a second. And we honestly don't know, and I think that's kind of the unknown is what it triggers this curiosity and us to search YouTube all we can to try to figure this stuff out. But Dr. Stephen Greer is just the beginning, man. I mean, he's probably the most well known out there. Yeah. But
I would suggest anybody who's interested to please just listen to what he says, even if because he preaches a lot of acceptance too. Like he wants contact, he wants that. It's not like he doesn't want it. He doesn't fear. He really talks about the fact that he's had contact before. I've personally watched a video of a YouTube video that could not have been doctored, and
is that the one where they're on the beach?
They're on the beach, and they're all just, they've done their Vedic seance, and they've done their meditation, and they've literally done what's that thing that he uses to call to bring them down. He says it's called I forgot what it is. Basically, it's seeing yourself from above the earth and then bringing yourself down slowly to where you are on the planet. And I guess the way that he does his meditation, it's supposed to send a signal out. I mean, they're supposed to be aware of everything that we can think, because to him, he believes that the universe is a single consciousness.
Right.
And when you make a conscious thought, if you truly were in tune with everything around you should also know what you're thinking, or feeling or whatever. And he believes that they're in tune with that, and that's how they communicate to each other and also to us. If you ever had a contact, they don't speak. They've progressed
it's all like
past
telepathy,
that.
yeah.
it's all through the mind and consciousness. And I think that's why there are so many studies out there that a person, even at a poker table, or at a roulette table, can influence the outcome of that ball that goes around. And the more time, the harder you think about it, the more times it's going to land on what you're thinking of. It's a funny study that you can go and look up, but it's really interesting that our conscious thought has power and we don't even realize it. And he thinks that we can kind of project that conscious thought up to where they can actually listen to what we're thinking and bring them down to where you're actually standing and sitting and doing this meditation, and actually call them down, and they come. And it was an amazing video of them on the beach, and they have these video cameras and night vision, and these two yellow orbs just show up in the sky, and they blink out and blink on, and they're not moving. They just show up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It's not like it's a plane. This isn't a plane. It's like the size of smaller than the sun in the sky, but just as bright at nighttime, and they blink in and out, and one of them goes away for a while and comes back. So it's not like it's not a static light like a star. It's in the horizon. It's not above the horizon where the stars are. It's in the horizon, above the cloud line, or right on the cloud line. So it's not like it's a star.
Well, there's that app that I downloaded, which is actually Stephen Greer's app. It cost me like $5, but it's called ET Contact, and he literally.
You said you tried it one time, right?
I
dabbled in it.
I probably should have done it when I wasn't as tired, but I was laying in bed listening to it, and he takes you through this meditation, and it's deep. You really got to listen to what he's saying, but I kind of started to fall asleep, but it's got all these different things in it that explain how you do it and all these levels, and then you can purchase more types of meditation, but it really is crazy. You start to actually get outside of your head for a little bit, and then that's when I started to get tired. But there are people that sign up for his seminars, and they go out to they fly out to these states, and you basically, it sounds like a cult.
Joshua Tree.
Yeah, Joshua Tree.
Where's that? New Mexico?
I think
New Mexico?
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Joshua Tree is always a perfect place to say that's where he goes, because a lot of people smoke a lot of weed at Joshua Tree. but if you go, that's basically where I heard the area is. But they basically commune, and they actually all do a group meditation, and they do come down and say that they've seen them and stuff like that, and a lot of people listening to this are probably going to say that they're on acid, but at the same time, it really is. I don't think that that's the case. I never do. I think this guy's for real, and that would be an experience I would like to have. That would be amazing, But
let's all throw it out there though, and be honest. It is very expensive to go with him to do this. It's not like let's have everybody who wants to come and do this thing. It's thousands of dollars to spend time with this guy for him to teach you how to do it, and it's not like he doesn't just ask you out there. You have to go and do the training. You have to know how to. You have to be able to meditate a certain amount of time before you can do it. And so, a lot of people would say this is absolute bullshit, and
say it's like a cult. Yeah,
it's like a cult, or it's absolute bullshit because he's taking your money, and you're doing this stupid thing where you're humming a lot and you're trying to meditate, and it's really just a crock of shit. But
and then he slips something into your drink.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, now I see lights. Aliens are everywhere.
Yeah, right. But I think it's different than that. Yeah, but anyways, I mean, you guys definitely check out Dr. Stephen Greer and give it a shot. But next thing I want to talk about, which I always found extremely interesting, is you actually have talked to me about a guy that I went on and then watched his YouTube videos. His name is Phil Schneider, and he was a geologist with like top, secret government clearance, and he stumbled upon something that we believe got murdered because he started talking about it. But let's talk about that for a second.
Well, I mean, again, he came up. It was one of those things. If you search hard enough, you'll find good stuff.
If you search for it, it will come.
Yes. It was one of those things that it was a really crappy video, and I happened to click on it. And like Tony said, he was a geologist for the government, and he had top like a certain clearance with the government only because he was involved in creating underground bunkers for the government. So clearly, in underground bunkers, it's probably secret stuff. So he's got a top secret clearance. It had nothing to do with the aliens to start, right? So one time. And he talks about this, and there's a 7-part video on YouTube that you can watch, and it does get very boring if you're not interested.
He starts talking about rocks at one point. I'm like, dude,
he's talking
just
about rocks.
Get
He's
to
got
the point.
artifacts. He shows you. He doesn't actually show the camera because he's doing a talk in front of like a hall of people.
Yeah.
But you don't actually get to see a lot of his artifacts. But
the one reason I continued to watch him though was because like at one point he was talking and I realized he was missing like 4 fingers. I'm like, what the fuck happened to this guy?
No, yeah, I mean
so that kind of drew me in.
Well, I mean, it was a little scary when I saw that at first. I'm like, what the heck happened to this guy? So and he eventually gets to it, but he's got like artifacts in his hand of metals that aren't supposed to be on this planet that are
they don't
not
correspond to the periodic table.
No, they don't, and it doesn't. There's not even a whatever on the periodic table to do this metal, and he says that it's stronger than diamond. And if you know anything about geology or any sort of rocks, diamond is used to cut everything that's harder. That's not as hard as itself. Now, diamond is one of the hardest substances you can have on this planet, or you could find. And he's got artifacts that are harder than diamond. And he talks about the fact that a lot of the stuff that he has found in working through the government has been now used in military formats like the F-16s and the stealth bombers and it's non-reflective and it's lighter but stronger than diamond. So a lot of this stuff he talks about is interesting. And he's got it in his hands and he's showing people in the audience. It's not like he's just talking about it. He's got it in his hands and people can see it. And he says that one thing is very hard and it's 3 times the weight that it should be. And it's just stuff he's got is amazing. But he talks about one time he was doing he was going about his day-to-day shift, and they were blasting bigger and bigger areas in this underground bunker, and they blasted open this area, and there were alien grays in this area. I mean, they blasted open this area, and all of a sudden, it's like this laboratory type building. They busted the rock open, and it's like they busted into this area where they probably shouldn't have been. And he says that the aliens attacked them. That he attacked them, and everyone was killed but him. And he says
there was this one dude pushed him out of the way.
Yeah, this Marine, saved his life for no real reason. And that Marine ended up dying. But he talks about the fact that the alien, and he talks about it in such specifics. It's not like he's like, weird. The aliens attacked us. It actually started an underground war for a couple days, and it was very weird. I mean, I'm talking about this stuff, secondhand because I'm listening from YouTube, and don't think that I. Always believe everything that I hear, but he talks about it in such specifics that it's really scary. He talks about the fact that the alien, and this is interesting, that it was like a 7-foot tall gray. I mean, there's different types of grays. The short ones that could potentially be just robots that look like. Then there's the real ones that are taller and bigger. But he talks about
the hand in front of the chest.
Yeah, he puts his hand in front of his chest, and a beam of light like laser light shoots out of his wrist. He had something on his wrist, and he kind of rubs his stomach a little bit, and it shoots out. And he said that, and he looks at his hand, and he's got 2 fingers left on his hand. And he said he opened me up like a fish. He said it opened him up not only did it melt his fingers off his hand, but it melted part of his body weight, and he almost died. He was in the hospital for months recovering from what happened. And it was a Marine who was down there who pushed him into an elevator shaft and hit the button, and he went up, and everybody died on that floor at that time. And he talks about it in such specifics, and he talks about how he literally when he made that video that I watched at that time, and I don't remember how far back it goes, probably a couple of years now.
I think it was like 2004 or something, though. It was
few years now.
Recorded, yeah.
And he had just killed an FBI agent that tried to kill him. I mean, there are because he's the only one who's talking about that incident. And also, actually, I remember now, he talks about the fact that there are 2 or 3 other people who survived, and they're in Canada, and the U.S. government and the Canadian government will not allow them to leave the nursing home they're in. Now, they're in a nursing home.
That's freaky shit.
And they must have sustained injuries either to the head or whatever, and they will not allow them to leave, because if they allow them to leave, and no one can visit them, because if they talk about what's going on, it could open up a huge can of worms. And he's the only one talking about it per him.
And it was funny, too, because I remember there's a part in that video where he says that I read something. It was like a bunch of text came up, and it said Phil Schneider talked to, I think it was like a family member, and said, I feel like my life is in danger because I've been talking about this for so long. He's like, I just want you to know that if I do die, whoever is after me is going to try to make it look like a suicide, and I want you to know that I would never commit suicide. And then it was like 2 months later, they found him in his apartment, and it looked like a suicide.
Yeah, he had like a
gun in his hand or something.
No, it was like that thing that they tie around your arm to get your blood pressure, or to take blood to bring your veins out.
Oh yeah.
So it was that wrapped. It was wrapped around his neck, and it was tied off. So he was sitting in a chair in the middle of his apartment with that rubber, tie
around his neck
tied off, and that was it. He choked in it, and it made it look like it was a suicide, but I can pretty much guarantee that he did not kill himself.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're going to kill yourself, take some pills to blow your head off. It's going to be a lot more easy than that.
Oh, I know. Why would you go through that
the
torture?
worst way to go, yeah. If that's something that where somebody had to probably come up behind him and choke him to death, you know what I mean? But it's very interesting. Something like that is extremely specific, and they're talking about aliens, grays, killing, a beam of light, and it's like, Jesus, it's like, holy shit, this is real, you know what I mean? And I just want to say this too. If you're listening to this, we're getting
very
mega
deep,
into this stuff, because I told you, he knows a lot about this stuff, and so do I, and we're really into this, and we probably put a lot of man hours into listening to this stuff, which we probably could have been doing a lot of other things with our lives.
More productive,
maybe. Yeah. Yeah, but you know what? Who cares? It's an interest. But I just want you guys to know that we do not believe everything that we hear.
No, we definitely don't.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of crap on YouTube, but as you, start to research more of the stuff, you start to sift through the bullshit.
Yeah.
And you start to find things that really...
And there's stuff that's hard to believe.
It's
hard to believe. Even though you think it's legit, it's hard to absolutely believe. Dr. Stephen Greer says some real crazy stuff that it's hard to believe that that's real. The government would actually do that?
There's a couple. I was on my way to a gig in Boston, a DJ gig, and I had an hour and a half ride. And I literally listened to Stephen Greer for 2 hours. And there were parts in his talks where I literally out loud in my car, I was like, yeah, right. I was like, that's bullshit. You know what I mean? I was like, all right, that's a little far-fetched. But you know what I mean? He why would he say it if it wasn't true after everything else that he's said and the audiences he has? It's just insane.
Could he be that delusional to make all of this stuff up and go in and talk internationally? I don't know. Have you ever heard of that guy, the former defense minister from Greer?
Oh, yeah, that guy's
Paul
got some good shit, though.
He believes that there are at least 10 to 15 different species of aliens,
yeah.
And he was a defense minister for Great Britain at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of the biggest, he's one of the most outspoken people on this planet about ufology. So, and he wants it to be disclosed. And Dr. Stephen Greer is I think really close to doing it, what's called his Disclosure 2.0, and he talks about it in that film Sirius that Tony plugged earlier. That and now this stuff is coming out where he's going to actually they're making another documentary, and I'm not sure when that's going to be up, but he's almost ready to disclose everything to the world. I'm talking names, footage, documents. I mean, if you go to disclosureproject.com,
I've been there so many times.
yeah, you can actually see, what he says are leaked government documents leaked to him from high up, congressional, military figures who have leaked documents to him, classified documents that he has in his storage, and you can see some of them on his website.
Yeah.
Now, if that does, and it goes so far as to have like the black lines through some things that they don't want you to see.
Yeah.
And you can actually ask for unclassified documents about, because eventually the government has to unclassify documents after a certain amount of time. They have to.
Right.
Now they don't.
It's a law.
It's a law, and you can request those to be unclassified, and you can request to get them as a citizen of this country. And not a lot of people know that. But it's just very interesting that he's got a lot of stuff, and it's worth just taking a look at. If you're interested in it at all, it's worth just listening to. And you know that because once I told you about it, you were definitely like, oh my God, mind blown.
Yeah,
crazy
it was awesome, man. And I think listening to people like Phil Schneider really kind of makes you like take a step back for a second. You're like, holy
scary,
shit! Like it's not. Yeah, it's kind of scary. If this stuff actually is out there. Because these people have crazy clearance, and it's just interesting because a lot of these people don't want their identities revealed because of how scared they are that their lives are in danger. But on a lower scale, somebody that does not have security clearance, I think one of the first things that really scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, I couldn't sleep because of it for about a week, and I know you've seen it, and we've talked about it a bunch of times, is the movie Fire in the Sky. And that is based on Travis Walton, one of the most famous abduction cases ever. And what I think is interesting is that, and a lot of this stuff goes back to Stephen Greer and the stuff that he says, where, they've asked him about abductions, and, if you say that these aliens are there and they wanted to actually help us and stuff like that, because there have been a lot of stories about like how, there are different bases where we have, or bunkers where we have nuclear weapons, and they'll see like a craft hover over like the area where the nukes are stored, and the military sees it and they don't know what to do, and then all of a sudden like it flies away, and then they realize that the nukes have been disabled.
Yeah.
And they can't actually reactivate them.
Yep.
Because they're actually trying to protect us from hurting ourselves or others,
and
or the
Earth.
planet, exactly.
And
so,
the Earth, yeah.
So it's interesting, So he says that the government tries to make us think that these aliens are possibly trying to harm us. So they actually have people in the government use government-made crafts that using technology that we don't know about to actually abduct people and do things to them that frighten them, so they will go on and tell people that this happened and so on and so forth. And whether that is true, and I can see some truth to that, because I mean, if you watch the X-Files, that's basically what they were saying.
Yep.
But and that is a TV series. But I mean, when you hear that originally, then you see in the TV series, you're like, where'd they get that information from? And then
it's got to be some shred of truth in there somewhere.
Yeah.
No.
But you listen to Travis Walton, and there was that show, I think it was like Paranormal Witness or something like that, where they interviewed the real guys. And whether this was government or not, these guys, and Travis Walton, believe it or not, the guy that it happened to is probably the least actually still. I mean, he still tells the story, and he's
not as affected as the other.
He's not as affected. The other guys,
he went through it though.
He went through it. That's the thing. But the other guys, there's one guy. He's kind of like, I would say he's more like the nerdy looking guy. He's got the glasses. The guy's talking about it, and he's like in tears. Yeah. And he's the one who saw him like the beam hit him and almost kill him, and they drove away because they were scared, and he like regrets that. But it's like that guy was so emotionally affected, and I'm watching it, and it just, the guy's reaction emotionally was so real that it was almost like you felt bad for him. Like he saw like a friend of his get thrown across a fucking 100-foot path by this beam that came out of the sky, and they still don't know what it was, and that's a scary thing. And Fire in the Sky scared the fuck out of me when I was a kid.
I was really scared.
Because I was like, if that shit's real, like, who's to say, like, that's not going to happen to me or what? I was like a kid, you're just thinking crazy. But the whole, scene where they put him on the table and do all those fucking experiments and just putting shit in his ear and in his throat, and it's just like it was so disturbing. And I saw that in 6th grade. Like I don't know why.
Terrible time.
Terrible time. I couldn't sleep, dude, for like a week.
Formative years.
Yeah, seriously. But I think it's because of stuff like that once I got older and I started to think about it again, I was like, oh, I want to look up some of this stuff and see what the story was. You know, and Fire in the Sky is just one of those things where, you know, Travis Walton took the lie detector test, and all the guys did, and they all passed several times. Right? He's written a book about it where he said the ship took him to like a hangar where it was like in space, but like he got out and there were all these other crafts that were like obviously not made by our government. He's like, and then it goes in like phases though. Like he doesn't remember certain things, but he remembers like kind of sitting on this like table, seeing all this stuff happening, but he was kind of out of it, and then. You know, they started doing all that weird shit to him. And it's very, very interesting. But, and I say interesting because is it something that actually happened? But then if the government did do that, how is he in space since seeing this hangar? And how is he seeing those other crafts? And if that is true, where is that? And it dropped him back off like in his town. You know, like where the hell did he go? Or was it like a drug-induced thing? You know, it really makes you think about that. But if it was drug-induced, his experience, those other guys who were just in the car saw this thing come out of the sky and throw him across like 100 feet. Like that's the other thing you question.
Yeah.
Like, you know, is it the government? Like, did they, if they really had that technology, like, how did they even know that he was going to be driving around that night with his friends in the woods? You know,
they were out on a joyride.
You know what I'm saying? Though
looking
it's
for
like
people to abduct.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how did they plan that? Like, it just seemed like a little like weird that it was just very coincidental.
Yeah.
And if there are aliens out there, who's to say that they're? I mean, and this is, yeah, there's a good and bad side to everything. Who's to say there aren't aliens out there that maybe do have it out? Or don't give a shit. You know
there
what I
are
mean?
some, according to Dr.
Be.
Greer, that they're not all positive.
No.
And Phil Schneider clearly, he almost died by some.
Well, you're saying like so the Greys are the ones that attacked Phil Schneider,
right?
But then also I've heard Dr. Greer say the Greys are actually okay, and then I've heard that the green aliens are the good ones, or they're the bad ones. It's like it goes back and forth.
It goes back and forth, but it's also unclear. I think nobody really truly knows because they've never really had contact. You know,
No.
Yeah, they've seen things in the sky, and they in some cases, Dr. Greer has seen beings on the ground inside their circle of meditation through some sort of light device that they were using to captured the figure of something. And he also talks about the fact that they're multi-dimensional beings as well. So
Right.
they're not just living and moving through our dimension, 3 dimensions, but they're moving through other dimensions as well. So they can phase in and out at any time. And I think that's why they're only seen when they want to be seen, or when, you know, for some reason. And I always question that. Well, why would they ever want to be seen then? You know,
right.
But at the same time, maybe that's just.
But I think it's validity. Like they want us to. I think they want us to see them so that it gives us a little bit more. It gives them a little bit more credibility, and it gives us a little bit more something to kind of go off of. Like, okay, well, we think that this is real, but then I actually saw them in some form, so I know that they are actually there.
Yeah.
So I think as the connections between us and them slowly get bridged.
Yeah.
I think they're becoming a little bit more trusting of us and letting us see things that they think we are going to be able to handle.
Well, it definitely has ramped up since in the 90s for sure.
Well, there's a lot of other stuff, man, that has happened too. I mean, there's been a lot more sightings. There's the advances of everybody having a video camera on their phone.
Yep, exactly.
So you can catch things that normally wouldn't have been able to been captured unless you had a handheld video camera on you. So videos is a powerful thing that we can control now. You know, and there's a couple other things like you know, if this had happened maybe 12 years ago, it probably wouldn't have had the same impact. But there was that sighting in L.A. that people say is a rocket. It was, you know, but to me, I've never seen a rocket make that type of light display. It was like purple and pink, and it looked like, I mean, and the other thing that I always wanted to question is, okay, if that is a rocket, right, and it was a military
So
test.
was it a girl rocket? Is that what you're saying?
No,
So
no.
Purple and pink. I mean,
No, I wasn't going to go that way.
Kind of weird.
That's
Yeah.
interesting. But what I was going to say is, it's like, if you are going to do a military test, right, why do it at night, one, where the rocket's going to be a lot more visible to the naked eye, and two,
Good point.
why would you do it over a major populated area where an entire fucking city is going to see it and then question it? If it's a military experiment, you probably want to do that out of the public eye. So for that was where I questioned it. I mean, they're like, oh, well, it was a test. It's like, anytime there's any kind of sighting, it's always a military test. And I'm sick of falling for that shit.
Yeah, no,
You know what I mean? There's always some fucking test that we didn't know about. And
Or there's
then,
a balloon or a weather
that doesn't make any sense. What the fuck is a goddamn weather balloon? I mean, it doesn't crash in the middle of the fucking desert if it's a balloon.
No.
You know what I mean? So there's a lot of things that just don't make sense. And that is being one of them. And I think right away, you know, people questioned it, and before it went viral, which it did anyway, the government released some bullshit that some agent probably was like, all right, we're going to throw this out there and blah, and cover it up. And then all of a sudden we accepted it's a rocket, and it's bullshit. I don't think it was. I don't fucking for a second believe that it does. And you actually do, though.
I just can't. I mean,
but this is also, before you get into it, this is interesting. You know, like, we don't necessarily believe everything we see. Like, this is one thing where I might think it's real, but Danny, you know, actually saying that he thinks it was actually a rocket.
Right.
You know, so
From what I've seen,
we don't believe everything's aliens.
Yeah, we don't always think that it's aliens.
I mean, I ordered pizza the other night. Aliens didn't bring it to me. It was a real person.
That's
yeah.
Probably a nerdy person.
Yeah.
A lot of acne, but
it was a person.
Yeah, but it was a person. It was not something out of the
person that I tipped.
Yes. Probably very small tip.
No, yeah.
Thanks for driving 1 mile.
No problem. Small tip. That's what she said.
$2. No, it's no, it's just really it's just crazy. Like, I thought it was, to me, what it looked like was a rocket. It looked like what a meteor would look like. It didn't look like a classic example of what a UFO would look like. UFOs don't emit color. They emit light, but they don't emit color. And the shape of it was more like what a meteor would look like, with the head and the trailing light behind it. It was very anomalous and very strange looking, for sure. But I can't definitively say either way what it was. And I'm okay with that explanation.
There's like 2%, maybe 10% of me that thinks it was a rocket, but there's like there's 90% that thinks it was looked more like it could be some sort of UFO that, I don't know. It was exactly that, an unidentified flying object. I'm not saying it was an alien. I'm saying it was a UFO.
Well, I'm just saying, from my experiences. Now, I recently had some experiences that were repeated.
Yeah, you talked about these. I remember that.
Like 2 months ago, and I was at the time, and I'm going to be truly honest with you. I was, again, you know, I go through periods where I'll go like a week, and it'll be like 10 o'clock at night, and I'll be, you know, either I'm, you know, gaming, or I'm looking at alien videos on YouTube, or listening to music. So I'm always on YouTube, and so I'm typing in YouTube, and I'm looking around, and things come up in my news feed, and I'm really getting back into it again, and I'm starting to really think about like what I truly believe about this stuff. And then I'm driving home from work. So again, it's always in my mind, right? So then again, you can say that it's influencing what I'm seeing potentially, right? So I'm driving home from work, and I'm always looking up at the sky. And the first one was I'm just driving into work in the morning. And this is random, and this could go either way, but it was just very strange. I see this light up in the sky, and it was like an orange sky, brand new in the morning in the winter. So it's very clear, and I see this light up in the sky, and it's not a plane, right? And it's not a star, because it's not that high, you know, and it's pretty big, you know. And I'm watching it as I'm driving, and I'm clearly trying to keep my eye on the road as well, because it's, you know, traffic in the morning, whatnot. And I keep looking down and looking up at it, and I'm like, this is really, really strange. I'm just kind of keeping my eye on it as I'm driving, and as I'm driving down the road, I tend to keep looking, and it's staying where it is. And then all of a sudden, like, because my field of view changed, I kind of went around a turn, like a slight bend in the road. So then I saw that from a different angle. It was gone, just gone. And you would think that if it was a plane, I would still be able to see it. I mean, this is wide open horizon here. I'm not talking like nothing could have blocked my view from seeing this. And it was a very strongly bright object. And I happened to just look up at it, and it was gone. I would have seen it. If it was a plane, I would have seen it continue on wherever it was going, either behind me or to the side or, in the foreground. And it was just absolutely gone. So I thought that was strange. And then a week later, I'm driving home, and this has happened 3 times to me now, right? In this, and it was very, very strange because it started happening, and I remember calling my boss at the time, no longer works with me, and it's being like, this is what's going on. He was like, this is crazy. So I'm driving home from work, and the same thing. I'm driving home now. It's the end of the day. The sun is setting, and again, wide open sky. There's not a cloud in the sky, and I see this bright object. And it's not a plane. It's not moving. It's just hovering in the sky, just kind of sitting there.
Yeah.
And it's extremely bright. So it looks like a star, but it's not because it's not dark out and it's not up high where a star would be, But it's so close that it's not a star. I know it's not. It's too close,
Right,
it's in the horizon. It's too close. So I'm watching it as I'm driving again, and I'm really starting to really get a little freaked out because I'm watching it. It's sparkling almost. It's really like sparkling. And I've watched a bunch of videos of Dr. Stephen Greer, and in his video it was like this big sparkling gold orb. And as I am watching it, no word of a lie, I'm not going to lie, but I'm not trying to pump this up for this podcast. I mean, you know how I am.
Yeah, I know. You wouldn't
very
make it up
truthful.
just
I'm
to
not
make it up.
making it up. It literally dematerialized right in front of me as I was watching it. There was not a cloud in the sky to block my vision. I'm not talking about reflecting rays of the sun off my windshield. It was a specific point in the sky, and it literally, the only thing I can think of is it looked like it broke up into small little sparkling lights, and then all of a sudden all those little sparkling lights just went out. And I was like, holy shit, that's so weird, right? Mm-hmm. Why would that thing just be in the sky like that and just all of a sudden not a cloud in the sky? The sun was in the side over here, so it wasn't like it was right next to the sun and I was getting some sort of weird glare. It just dematerialized literally in front of me. It looked like it just all the little lights. It like instead of being a one like circle, it looked like it broke up into small little lights, and then all of a sudden all those lights went out one by one, and then boop, gone. Right, so I was like, that's so strange. And I started really thinking about it, and I called my boss, and we were talking about it. And then, like 2 days later, the exact same time as I was driving home from work, the same exact thing, same exact thing happened. Same place in the sky? Same place in the sky. As I'm driving home through Worcester, this fucking light in the sky, and I'm watching it for about 5 minutes, and it was like, it wasn't moving. And then all of a sudden, just dematerialized right in front of me. And I'm like, holy shit, is anybody else seeing this right now? Like, I'm looking around, I'm looking at people driving right next to me, and no one's looking up at the sky. And I'm the only idiot looking up at the sky, potentially get into an accident, looking at this dumb light at the sky. But, I mean, that's an experience, That's an experience to me, something very strange. You can't explain. I cannot explain how a bright golden light in the sky dematerializes right in front of me, and it is no longer in the sky with no clouds and just a blue sky. I wouldn't like that. A plane doesn't just dematerialize. You can always see it reflecting in the sunlight.
Yeah.
And it moving either away from you or towards you or whatever. This was just gone, done. Nothing there anymore. And it was just the most crazy thing. And like he talks about, how they can fade from one dimension to the other. And that kind of just brought me right to that.
It's interesting because I was talking to you about this earlier before we started recording this, and it kind of, like, I do envy you in some ways because, or people that have had these experiences and seen things. I mean, I've always been into, like, the paranormal thing, and then obviously the UFO thing has been a big part
ghosts.
of my life.
I hate ghosts.
Yeah, I know you talk about that.
Too scared of those things.
Yeah, like ghosts you said would fuck up your life.
Oh,
if you saw
fuck
one.
my life right up. I would be in a mental institution if I knew that there was a ghost in my house or around me at one point.
I gotta tell you, I'm gonna tell you a story on this podcast to free you out. My grandmother had a thing like in a minute I'll get to it, but like it was just funny because you have had these experiences being very into this. It's crazy that it's usually the people who are like, well, I was driving home in my truck and holy shit, this is fucking light and I don't know what the hell it is and I could call cops and like they're always like they sound like it's somebody you'd see on like an episode of Cops that is
in
like
Las Vegas.
Yeah, they're like or it's just like a hardcore alcoholic, who like has like a white trash job. He works out in the woods. It's like some guy who was like, well, I don't know if I believe this guy's, but I mean like. You get your shit together, so it's like, so I believe, I believe you. You wouldn't just pull this out of your ass. And there's a couple people, friends of mine, that have claimed they've seen UFOs. And here I am, one of the guys who's really into.
What
this
about
stuff.
the picture from my wedding? I mean, from my cruise last year.
Yeah, and by the way, guys,
do you have that on your phone? You post that to your website, so
guys.
you can see that.
So when
up.
Ryan Moniz and I and Cooley and my buddy Jim Kelly did a podcast a while back. I'm so glad you brought that up. Did a podcast a while back.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, on it was before last October. We did a podcast specifically all about ghosts and paranormal stuff, and I brought up this UFO thing, and I posted a picture of that on Redbeard Podcast. So you guys can go backtrack and see that picture that I posted, and it was a picture that your wife took on the back of the cruise ship.
That's right. Outside,
right?
Yeah.
Outside, there's no windows to reflect this in the sky, and then and Beth took it, who doesn't believe in this shit.
That's right.
And then you were going through the pictures and you saw this thing in the sky, dude. And if you zoom in on it, it looks like a fucking UFO craft.
It is.
Like it is so
spitting image
blatant.
of a saucer. Yeah.
It is a saucer. I mean, I don't know how the fuck you do not see this shit.
We couldn't see it with our naked eye either.
Yeah,
that's the thing. I would have seen that. We were both looking out that direction. I would have seen a bright craft in the sky. I mean, I'm telling you. This stuff is like so crazy to me. Like when you talk about phasing in and out of dimensions, we have technology that we don't even know truly all of the things that it could do.
Right.
Like so, a picture with X-ray technology, whatever the hell the picture when that thing flashes, who knows? It could pick up so many things. It picks up ghosts that we can't see with the naked eye.
Yeah, like stuff we can't see. So I think it's interesting, that you've just had experiences. People I know have had experiences, and I haven't been lucky enough to have one yet. And I'm talking about UFOs, not ghosts, because I probably would be in a mental institution as well. But getting to just to talk about ghosts for a second, because I just want to see your reaction. So my grandmother.
Yep.
She
looks great, by the way.
Thank you very much. She actually told me that this is the weirdest thing.
In a non-weird way. She looks great.
She looks good.
I haven't seen her in a while.
We get it. So I don't think you had to say that.
Whoa.
But anyway, so we so it was funny because this happened maybe like 3 years ago. My dad, he's so like nonchalant about things sometimes. He's like, yeah, so you should ask your grandmother about the ghost you saw the other day. And I'm like, when did this happen? The other day. I'm like, and you just fucking told me about it 3 days later. Like, why didn't you? I'm into this stuff. So I saw my grandmother. I was like, Grandma, my dad told me that you saw a ghost the other day. And this is after my grandfather passed away. Maybe like my grandfather passed away in like 2008. So this was like maybe in 2013 or 14. She told me this. She was in her apartment where they used to live. They no longer live there. But she was in the morning. She was making like toast and something for breakfast. And she said she felt like there was something behind her, like watching her. So she turns around and she sees a blue light in the kitchen, like a blue haze in the kitchen, just there. She looks at it and she's trying to figure out what it is. She was kind of like she says she didn't feel scared of it. She just didn't know what it was. And she looks down at the bottom. She could make out like pants, and she could make out the same shoes that my grandfather used to wear.
Oh, wow.
So she sees that. And she says she sees the blue haze actually start to like back up in the kitchen, and it goes, and as in the apartment they lived in, if it backs up and then it goes around a corner. So she saw it back up, and as it turned the corner, she went to follow it. It turned the corner. She turned the corner, and it was gone. So she doesn't know what it was, but she believes that it was my grandfather just making sure that she was okay.
Oh, geez, I just got chills, man.
You know what I'm saying? But it's like stuff like that. Like my grandmother. Like she believes in that stuff, but she wouldn't make that up. She has no reason.
Not, yeah.
My grandmother. Like she just wouldn't pull that out of her ass.
No one that age would make that stuff up.
No, and and it's crazy because my buddy Jim has seen a ghost, and I'll tell you that later. But he told that story. So it's interesting, to the experiences and stuff that people have, and a lot of people close to me have seen things, and I haven't yet. So hopefully
we will eventually.
Yeah, I would hope so. So, a couple other things I want to talk about getting back into UFOs was a really cool documentary that you and I watched once, which was called Unplugged on UFOs, starring basically the guy being interviewed is somebody we all know, Dan Aykroyd.
You would never even think that this guy would be into this stuff. Like,
But he's like a UFOologist, this guy. He's like
serious.
hardcore into it. A lot of people don't know either that if you're a big Ghostbusters fan, like who isn't, and if you're not, you can go fuck yourself. But like, but if you're a Ghostbusters fan, the top of the ecto has all these weird fucking things on it, and you don't know what they are, like antennas and weird devices. Everything on that ecto was something that Dan Aykroyd wanted on that, and he knows what everything specifically does. So when you think about that, and he's really into that aspect of the paranormal, but then he's also into UFOs. There was some unbelievable like footage from NASA on that is God. Just like you watch this stuff, it is blatantly obvious.
Yes,
that
you
UFOs
can't make it up.
I mean, it's like there's one where you see the Earth and you see like a UFO outside the atmosphere, and then you see a missile start to go out, and the UFO takes off because it's amazing, like shit like that. All those lights and synchronization outside the Earth's atmosphere that NASA has gotten video of. That like they are probably pissed that we actually have access to that now.
Yeah,
but. But
then until they cut it and edited it.
Yeah, well, now there's a live feed that you
Yes.
can watch. Now, this happened actually maybe about 6 months ago. There was a article released where somebody said that they were watching the NASA live feed, and they saw a craft come into view. And then right away, it was like there for maybe like 20 seconds, and all of a sudden, like
cut the feed.
The feed literally cut, and it was like we will return to our feed like momentarily, and it was out for like 15 minutes, and then it came back. It's shit like that is so sketchy. But I think somebody still has that feed, like they have a video because they were recording it before it got cut, so you can still find that access.
Well, there's so many also documented stories of astronauts and. They talk about the fact
Armstrong saw stuff.
Yeah, they talk about the fact that they have this code that they say when they have a code, they had a specific code that they would announce on their radios to the government, to NASA, about the fact that there is an unexplained craft or something outside of their door, outside of the spaceship. So. It's documented. You can hear it. I mean, there are literally like recordings of the astronauts making, saying this secret code, however you want to call it, to say that there is something out there and they need to like cut the feed.
Yeah.
Because it happens. Like there's some crazy shit that happened to them out there, and some of them talk and some of them don't. Like Buzz Aldrin, he will not say definitively whether there is or is not. And he's like drunk.
No, yeah.
Yeah, he's a drunk. And he's a hero, he's an American hero. But he will not definitively say, because the government probably got to him and said, do not talk about it because everyone will believe what you say. And no one will believe, the second or third class astronaut that nobody knows. But if you, Buzz Aldrin, the first person ever to walk on the moon, says, hey, listen, I saw fucking pyramids on the moon, yes, they'll believe it,
Well, one of the guys, and everybody knows this guy, so Neil Armstrong, obviously the first guy to actually walk on the moon.
Yes, Neil Armstrong, that's right.
Neil Armstrong actually is in the Dan Aykroyd documentary, and they
he
interviewed him, and he said that he was working on a military base, and there was a craft that literally like came down, and like the legs came out of the bottom of the ship, and it landed. And then all of a sudden, like people started firing at it, and the thing lifted, the legs went back in, and it took off. And he said it was one of the craziest things he's ever seen. He can't explain it. He doesn't understand what it was to this day, but he saw it with his own eyes. And there was some guy who actually had been recording it when it happened. That they didn't know that the guy recorded at the time, but like I think it was like 2 days later. There was a guy that came to the dude's house and was like, I need the footage. I need it now. And you can't talk about this ever again. And, like, threatened him. And, like, he had to give...
You're talking about the Men in Black at that point now.
The Men in Black. Yeah, like, they had to, like, took his footage and stuff. And interesting because the Dan Aykroyd documentary, he tells this really, really cool story where he was filming.
I remember.
This is probably one of the coolest things I've ever heard.
I got chills when you told the story.
So he was filming.
I get chills a lot.
He's filming I do too. He was filming a show. I forgot what it was called.
I also cry a lot.
Yeah, that's okay. That's probably a lot of other things going on there.
Yeah,
So there's a show that he was actually in the process of filming in like a soundstage. I forgot what it was called, but it was going to air and it never did. But it was all about like he was interviewing different people about their UFO experiences, and he was interviewing the Allagash guys. Which, if you look up Allagash, this is a really cool story about something about these people, these guys that got abducted on a camping trip in New Hampshire.
I remember that story.
Yeah, it also sounds like the beginning of Brokeback Mountain. So anyway,
you know how that ended.
Yeah. So I don't know why I can quit you. So anyways, they're
oh my god.
So he's talking about, Dan Aykroyd is talking about how he's on filming the show all about UFOs and sightings and people's stories, and then all of a sudden he steps outside because he's about to be on Saturday Night Live.
He's also a chain smoker.
Yeah, he is. Wow, yeah, he was. He was going to be on Saturday Night Live, and at the time when he was filming this, Britney Spears was going to be on SNL with him. So she had his number, and they were keeping contact about what they were going to be doing on the show. So he said he's on the phone.
Do you think he was hitting that?
Maybe.
I hope he was. Good for him.
She was probably saying, "Baby, hit me one more time."
Oh, I hope so.
Right. So anyway, he's talking to her on the phone, and as he picks up her call, he's like, "Oh yeah, whatever." He sees this like black car pull up in front of him. He's like, and this dude got out that was around. He's like, it was really tall guy. He said probably around like 6'5", 6'7", dressed in an entirely black suit, standing there. And he's outside of this black car, and he said, it's the middle of a busy street in New York City, with traffic and everything. He goes, I see the car. He goes, I'm talking to Brittany, and all of a sudden I'm just like, yeah, whatever, Brittany. He goes, I look to the left. He goes, I say something else. He goes to her, which was literally like a second. He goes, I turn back and look in the middle of the street, and the car's fucking gone. He goes, and the dude that was standing outside of it is also gone. He goes, now this is a busy street in New York City. He goes, if the car backed up or went forward, he goes, I looked away for a second. He goes, I would have seen it move. He goes, it literally vanished. He goes, and the dude that was outside of the car, also gone. He goes, I can't explain how it was going. He goes, I think that they might have had some kind of cloaking device on the car where they could have made it go invisible. But then again, like, who's to say they wouldn't have hit that car if they could actually do that?
Right.
But he says to this day he can't explain it. And the weird thing is that he went back into the soundstage to film that, and it was like 2 minutes later somebody came up to him and said, we actually have to stop filming the show. Like, we have to actually pull the plug on it.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
It's very interesting. He said that I saw that car maybe about 5-10 minutes before a producer came up to me and told me that they had to cut the show. He goes, and for that reason, he goes, we've never been able to air any of the episodes. He said, but he does. At the time the documentary was actually filmed, he said that they did continue putting the stuff on DVDs, and there's some episodes that you can still order. And I gotta go back and watch that documentary because I'm gonna look up the name of that show and actually order those.
Yeah, that would be. I would be interested to see that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool because I like to hear the Allagash story from the guys. I think that'd be kind of cool to see their perspective on what happened. So, Dan Aykroyd, another guy, just has a lot of cool information about UFOs. The guy that I never knew was into that stuff.
No, I had no idea until you actually turned me on to that video. DVD. Yeah, we watched it together.
Yeah,
I was like mind blown by the fact that Dan Aykroyd could actually be serious about something. That was number one. And number two was like, I didn't even think that there were people like, as interested as me, especially as a celebrity,
And then, and I mean, that's why he's got the that Crystal Skull vodka.
That's right.
Yeah, that Crystal Skull vodka. He talks about there's these crystal skulls like all around the world that are hidden, and so he created Crystal Skull vodka with some really like high quality stuff. That's his vodka. Yeah. So I actually own that. Jim actually got the. I got to show you another bottle of vodka. So Jim knows I'm like into like these cool alcohol bottles, and when I open up my man cave, I'm gonna like set them up. But like I got the Crystal Skull, which is cool. I also have this thing called Deadhead. It looks like a shrunken head.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it was like had rum in it. And Jim also got me this other one. It's called UFO, and it's actually It's like a little green alien head filled with vodka, and it's got the black eyes, and it's got green like vodka in it. I'll have to show it to you. It's in the cabinet. It's fucking awesome.
That's awesome.
So you got that from me. It was really cool. But a couple other things I want to touch upon. There's something that you brought up earlier. Actually, before we get into that, we'll just bring this up since we already talked about Fire in the Sky. You and I were really hooked on a movie at one point called The Fourth Kind.
Yes.
And we watched that movie, and I think we kind of fell for it.
We did definitely fall for it. We did. I remember texting you after and be like, look it up right now because I need to know for sure. Yeah. I knew you would know like the source to go to.
And we ended up, we were at our grandmother's house, and I remember I had seen it in theaters by myself because at the time I was dating Becca, and she was like, I'm not going to see that. And I was like, thanks for the support. And she didn't go. So I went by myself.
And that continues?
Yeah.
That support continues.
Yeah, as far as aliens go. And I watched it, and I loved it, and I was like, I knew I was right about this stuff, and then when I found that it was fake, I kind of wanted to kill myself because I had to admit to her. But I made her watch it. And she actually got severely freaked out.
Oh, it's very scary.
Because of the part that we watched it, she thought that it was real.
At the end,
it really happened.
At the end, when the alien is like talking to the girl and like telling her that he's God and screaming and everyone's
so
like, oh, dude, I was so scared. And I thought to myself, if this is the way things are, I am going to start carrying weapons on me. And I have.
Yeah.
So it's become, like I said, I'm very scared of the, paranormal and whatnot, but that movie really freaked me out. And there are documented cases of, regressive hypnotherapy.
Yeah, like they go through a hypnotist and they actually have these repressed memories of what happened when they got abducted.
Yes, that's a whole nother subject, but that scared me because not after you find out that that's not really what happened, or that the dramatization is not what happened. Something could have happened, but like the same type of thing happened. You realize that holy shit, if that is even a shred of truth to that, and they actually like floated up off the ground as they were having that hypnotic episode. Yeah. That's just like, I'm getting a chill right now. Like, it's crazy to even think that stuff is real.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of where we're coming from with this whole thing. Like, it's just so mind-blowing even thinking about this whole alien topic. And there's so many subsets.
That's the thing. It's not just one thing. It's like, there are so many subsets. There's so many different, like, avenues you can go when you talk about aliens. It's like, you talk about this Dr. Greer, like, I was like, okay, he probably knows some shit. But then, like, the more I listen to him, I'm like, you're talking about fucking 30 things right now. I can't even digest this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, I'm trying to focus on one thing, dude. And you're talking about how there's, like, labs where there's, like, aliens that are, like...
7 floors down.
But then they look like fucking humans, and we have been building them since, like, the fucking 20s. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I'm like losing my shit. Like, I mean, and that's where you start to think, like, is this real? But why would he be saying this if it isn't?
And where did he get that information?
And where did he get this information?
Could you, like I said earlier, could he be that delusional? He's making this stuff up, but he's doing that
internationally
in front of audiences of hundreds of people.
Yeah, but the only reason why he's trusted is because he has people with legit clearance backing him up.
Yeah.
So that's the thing that makes it true. It's like, these government people wouldn't be risking their lives and reputations if he was bullshitting. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I feel like everything he's saying is truth. I don't think there's one shred of bullshit in this guy.
Hey, just to throw it out there, I know the presidential race is getting hot right now.
Yeah.
And
you think Donald Trump's an alien?
No, I think he's. To be honest with you, he probably could be the worst president ever. But not to get into politics, but he is trying to expose, which I am a serious conspiracy theorist. He is trying to expose the 9/11 conspiracy, that it was our government working with other governments in the world, especially the Middle Eastern governments, to take down, to start a war, and that's why we went to war with Iraq. And basically it was for oil. So he's trying to bring all that out. Anyway, Dr. Stephen Greer says that he briefed President Obama and Hillary Clinton, who's also
he's had meetings with them.
What was her position? Secretary of State. Now, the Secretary of State usually sits in on every single meeting the president does and has, and he briefed both of them at the same time at at the Clintons' residence at one point, I believe. I think he says that, he speaks to that in one of his videos when he was speaking to people. And he says that Bill was like, and he even does a good impression of Bill Clinton about what he wanted. He was like, "Oh, let's, I want to know right now." All this like the way he talks, and he wants to know.
Tell me
he
what
wants,
you know right now.
Yeah, exactly. So you do it way better than me, and that's why you're the man. But he also talks about the fact that Hillary is the one who said, "Absolutely not. We're not." And she wasn't Secretary of no, I'm sorry. Let's regress a little bit. It was when Bill Clinton was president.
Okay.
He briefed Bill Clinton, and Hillary was not even anything at the time. She was just the first
his
lady.
wife. And
she said, "This is too deep. We're not going to pursue this." And Bill got all upset, and he wanted to know, and nothing ever came of it. But
so wait a minute.
So
wait a minute. She gave information, and he said he wanted to know more.
He wanted to know more. And
why the fuck didn't he say, "Shut the fuck up, I'm the president"?
Because clearly he doesn't run that family. She runs the family. I mean, she's a huge see you next Tuesday.
Can you please not wear another goddamn pantsuit? Wear a thong.
I mean, I mean, he was getting blown in the Oval Office for years.
Oh, what a G.
I mean,
like seriously.
Talk about the man of all men. You know what I'm saying?
That. So this person will remain unnamed, but I know somebody, and this is no joke, who has a coin from Bill Clinton, and he actually worked in the White House at the time. He had very high level security clearance. I can't even go into who he is. I'll tell you later.
I think you've told me about this guy.
He actually knows a lot about UFOs and said, if you don't believe in UFOs, you're a fucking idiot. But anyway, like point blank told me that. He actually has a coin that you can only get if you are with the president, and it says Bill Clinton's name like engraved and everything on it, signed. And he said that you would be unbelievably disturbed by the amount of fucking women we brought in the back door of the White House for Bill. He goes, people are like blown away by Monica Lewinsky. She goes, she was like on the bottom of the tier of the amount of people they brought in for him.
Oh God!
So I'm just saying, you know what I mean. But anyway, continue.
I mean, I don't know. From what he says is that she stopped the whole thing, like the meeting. She stopped the meeting in its tracks. So if you want to have somebody who is not willing to work for the common good of America and is really thinking of herself and her family and how much money she can make, clearly because she takes tons of money in from special interest groups. Now I'm getting very political.
But it makes sense.
But
it's all connected.
It's all connected. She doesn't want that out because she's making money from the oil industry, and she's making money from all these people who are all, big wigs and all those corporations where she's taking money for her campaign right now. And that's, if you watched any of the debates, that's number one on Bernie Sanders' hit list on her, is he has no special interest funding, and she has all special interest funding. So
I will say this: Hillary Clinton scares the shit out of me. Donald Trump,
he's a patriot, but he's not a president.
I will say this: when Donald Trump first started, like when he was like right out of the gate, I'm saying like maybe like a month in, I was like, I love this guy.
Yeah.
Then he started talking like a fucking idiot and like a racist, and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
And
he lost a lot of people because of that.
He did, and I don't like Hillary Clinton. She scares the shit out of me. I'm like Bernie Sanders all the way. I think the guy's awesome.
He's not going to win.
But that's what sucks.
Yeah, I know.
Is that it's going to come down to Trump and Hillary, and Hillary's probably going to fucking win.
Hillary will beat Trump easily.
Yeah, and that sucks. But that's the way it is.
But then again, think about
But Trump could win.
Trump could win. But then again, think about who's the most prepared to be a president.
Probably Hillary.
That's right.
Because she has Bill Clinton with her. That's the only thing.
Think about that.
Bill Clinton is going to be in her ear.
Not only do you get Hillary, but you also get Bill.
And
Bill's the man.
Yeah, and when Bill was in office, our economy was in the best state ever.
That's correct.
So anyway.
And he was one of the best presidents we've had in a long time.
He was.
And I think this political...
hey, man, I got blown in the office, but let's talk about the economy. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean?
Can you believe how good he's come out of that situation?
What a G.
He's a G. I mean, everybody loves the guy. He was a fantastic president, and yet he committed adultery in the fucking Oval Office many times, according to your friend.
Yeah.
And nobody gives a shit.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Has he even really ever admitted it?
Oh, my God.
I mean, he
The
went on
economy
national.
will be as good as my cock felt in that Oval Office. I'll tell you right now. You know what I mean? He's just the man. He really is. He's a smooth talker.
Yeah.
But I mean, he really does have his shit together. And I think
He's a Rhodes Scholar.
yeah, and I think that's why a lot of people actually are kind of backing Hillary because they know it's like a package deal.
Yeah,
And he's definitely going to have. She's going to look to him for some support,
of course.
and he's going to be sleeping in his old house. You know. Seriously,
He's going to be up to his old tricks again.
I never thought I'd be in the Oval. I never thought I'd be in the White House for what, fucking 12 years.
Think about that too. Think about
that's,
a guy.
That's a first.
That's a first.
That's a first.
A woman president is a first, and
And
also
her husband,
and
yeah.
her husband, who was the president, who's
Yeah.
now not the president, who's the first man of the White House.
Exactly. Who was a former president?
Oh my God! There's so many firsts. My
I know,
mind
I
is
know.
blown.
Oh my God. Anyway, so circle back to the
Circle
UFO
back,
thing.
circle back.
It really is all connected though when you think about it. So, but the fourth kind ended up turning out to be just bullshit. But still a great movie. But two other things I just want to touch about before we kind of end this was you talked about briefly something called the HAARP project.
Yeah.
And you and I have sent videos of weird things. Like it was like there are like trains that are going for miles of just we don't know where they're going or what they're carrying. And then there's also those weird sounds that people hear like in the middle of the forest or weird parts of the world, and they
Everywhere now,
nobody
yeah.
knows what the hell that sound is, and that's kind of related. So talk about that.
Well, it's first of all, I think when we were talking about the trains, they had they had military vehicles on them.
Yeah, like tanks.
Thousands of tanks on these long trains that are going across our country.
People think they're in like bunkers for like the end of the world.
Yeah, that it's documented that the government is building huge underground bunkers for whatever reason, and it's documented. There are Google images showing the changes in the earth. And showing things happening around them, and it's just documented. It's a fact that they're building these, and they come out and not that they say it, but it's a fact. Anyway, these noises that are happening throughout the country and other countries, it's not just our country, is it's like these weird, like mechanical, loud, echoing noises. And it's not like it's like a truck driving by or something. It's emanating from the sky. So people are getting freaked out that they're putting their cell phones on and they're recording these noises, and a lot of people are attributing that to the end times. There's a lot of stuff in the Bible, and this isn't a topic, but that says that the trumpets of Gabriel or whoever, because I'm not very religious, but trumpets of Gabriel, you will hear the trumpets of Gabriel when the end times come. I don't believe that for a second. Mm-hmm. What a lot of people think they are is the noises anyway are the government project called HAARP. It's HAARP, and it's this. What does it stand for again?
I looked it up earlier when you were talking about it. I'll keep going. I'll circle back and tell you what it is.
I guess it's this huge it emanates like this huge noise, and it's designed for some sort of military. And it's also designed for like I don't know, this vibration technology. I don't know. It's really something that I haven't delved too deeply into.
Not to cut you off, but I'm looking at it right here. And the funny thing is that when I look it up, the first thing it pulls up is AARP. But anyway, but it's actually there's also HAARP, which is there's a lot of stuff here. And let's see. HAARP, secret weapon used. Well, it's saying that it's used for weather modification. But it stands for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program. Is a little known yet critically important U.S. military defense program which has generated quite a bit of controversy over the years in certain circles. And let's see. It's saying that it's something to do with the weather, but I feel like that is also some kind of a cover-up in a way. I don't think that that's actually what it is because there's also links here to, it says the HAARP project, and then it's links to videos of the sound.
Yes, the sound is very eerie. I would suggest, if you're interested in
if you look up like weird sounds like UFOs, it will bring you to those videos, and it is a very specific sound. It doesn't sound like anything else, which is why people are kind of disturbed by it. Because if you see the videos, there's like a guy in the middle of the woods, and he's recording it. And it's like, it's from his angle, it seems like it'd be coming from the sky, but it doesn't sound like anything else I've ever heard before.
No, it's like a mechanical echo.
It's
like,
so weird.
It's like something's like. It's like this mechanical. I feel like it's like this huge mechanical wheel turning, and creating this huge echo of grinding gears, and like it's just echoing.
It kind of sounds like the best way I can describe like the frequency of it, or kind of the loudness. It kind of sounds like was it like an air raid siren? Like, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
it kind of sounds like something like that, like something that would be very loud that everybody would hear, like in that area. But it's also doesn't sound anything like that. It's just the volume of it, which could span that amount of that radius. Yeah.
And I mean, they're hearing it in Alberta, Canada. They're hearing it in Spain.
It's in everywhere
Germany,
around the world.
They're hearing it everywhere.
It's not like some dude in Connecticut keeps hearing it. It's like everywhere.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Don't get fooled by some of the videos on there. They're completely fake.
Yeah, some of them are a lot of bullshit.
Some of them is complete bullshit. But there are some really strange, weird videos out there of people in the middle of the woods just listening to this really loud, echoey.
It's always weird when we're like, it's some guy in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
Like, who knows what he's been smoking?
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? But it's not always in the middle of the woods.
Right.
It's some people that are just
They're
like,
in their apartment.
they're in their apartment, or they're like outside, like on their deck, grilling, and they're like, oh shit, like what the hell's this? You know,
Right.
and it's like, okay, that's weird because it's like a suburban area.
Yeah.
You know,
and
so
then there's
it's
one where there's like the dog like cowers in fear.
Yeah.
He's listening to the song, and he's it's in a different language, but you could see the dog like
the sound's bothering him.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
bothering him. And the guy goes out with his cell phone. And he's like looking around. It starts to get very windy outside, and it's just really strange how it just like it gathers like a storm. Like you don't hear it so high, the volume so high at first, but like the wind starts picking up and the dog freaks out, and then he's like, oh my God, what's going on? And like somebody translates it on the video, and it's just like the strangest kind of sound and videos, and it's stuff that's just, to me, again, very interesting. You know, the things that happen out there, we don't know. I mean, think about like our oceans. We've only discovered like 25% of the world's oceans. We're discovering new creatures all the time.
Well, the deepest part of the oceans is the Mariana Trench.
Yeah,
and that's like the deepest part that we've discovered. And people, scientists like recently, I think in the past 6 months, have found like different creatures at the deepest part of the ocean now that we didn't even know existed. So. Yeah. Who else knows, like...
What's out there? What the hell is
Jesus
going
Christ,
on?
Look at the end of the abyss. Like, you know what I mean? Where that craft comes up, you know, and it's, like, lifts up all these... It's like, who knows if there are not aliens down there that we don't know about yet, that they are still alive and have been there before. It's like... I mean, this is really getting, like, sci-fi, but, I mean, look at, like, the fucking end of the first X-Files movie, where, like, that craft comes out of Antarctica and just fucking takes off. You know what I'm saying? Like, that thing had been there for years, you know, before the Earth, millions of years before we even knew what the humans were. You know, so there's a lot of things that we have not discovered yet that we still need to, I think we're still starting to discover. And there's also, the last thing I wanted to bring up was the thing you brought up about the moon, which is some stuff that's coming out now.
Oh, yeah.
That's crazy. That is fucking... ridiculous, mind-blowing if that is actually legit.
That's one of the scariest things I think,
because that's like that's
really
the government really fucking with us.
Yeah,
that's actually legit.
I mean, these are things that people are seeing with telescopes and stuff now. Like they're seeing, like, and also NASA releasing these pictures of the moon and not editing it. And it's like you're seeing like what's looked. I mean, these people who are like geologists and people who are used to studying maps from above and things on the ground are seeing these pyramid-like structures that could not be things that are just made by meteor impacts and just nature. These are things that are not nature made. These are things that are man or something else made.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they're in perfect right angles. Mm-hmm. So you can see like a pyramid structure. There was one the other day I was looking at online on a YouTube video by an uploader called Secure Team, who I've recently subscribed to. Secure Team. He brings up all these new things, and his stuff is legit. Like, his stuff is not made up. He filters through things, and this is just one kid doing this, and he does a great job. He's got millions of hits on all of his videos. He does a great job. And it's like this oblong, really strange-looking thing that casts a shadow for hundreds and hundreds of miles on the actual surface of the moon. And you can see the sun. It's from the left side. The sun is on the left side. It's bright. The object looks metallic or white. It's literally, you can see it in the picture. It is shining a shadow for hundreds of miles across the face of the moon, and nothing. It's not a crater. It would be the wrong side for a crater to show a shadow. So it's just really strange things that are being found on the moon now because we have better technology. People are taking pictures on their own. NASA's releasing pictures they're not editing. And people are a lot more people are looking at pictures on the moon and seeing these different shapes and figures and whatnot. And this all started a long time ago. They thought they found like a human face on the moon, like a skull or something on the moon, and it turned out it wasn't. It looks like it, and then people started to really take a look at what was going on the moon and the surface of the moon, and then they started to think about well, what happened when why haven't we been back to the moon?
Right.
Why haven't we been back to the moon?
That's a good point.
That's the easiest place to go. There's probably tons of stuff we can learn from the moon. We only went how many times? One time, right?
I think
one time.
Yeah,
we went one time. We've stayed in orbit tons of times. We've landed on the moon one time. Why haven't we been back to the moon?
Yeah, that's a good question.
That really struck me as strange. Why haven't we landed on the moon again?
Yeah.
Why haven't we taken more up close pictures, samples, rock samples? Because with technology the way it is, clearly, there's been speculation that they, had only certain angles on the camera that they were allowed to show when they were on the moon. Because if they had turned the camera at all, you would have seen an effing pyramid. There's like tons of stuff. And it just, if you look back at, if you look down at the Earth and the Egyptian pyramids and how they're aligned to Orion's star, how it literally is exactly lined
Orion's
up.
belt, it literally matches up mathematically
perfectly to Orion's belt. And the size of the pyramids also match up to the stars' size.
See that shit. That shit.
Crazy
That stuff alone, I think, is evidence. Know what I mean? It's like we talk about Stephen Greer and all the stuff we've discussed, but then if you get as basic to the pyramids,
yes,
and how they line up to the stars,
and the fact that we really can't build those anymore.
Yeah, no,
how did they do that?
Yeah, how did they do
with
that?
No,
because aliens built them.
Yes,
I don't care what anybody says.
Which
anybody who's listening to this shit think I'm crazy.
Yeah,
you can if you see me at work and you don't want to talk to me anymore, that's fine.
That's fine.
I honestly believe they were built by aliens.
Yeah, well, let's go right to the Ancient Aliens show.
Guy, and I can't mention who I work for, but a guy that came into my job the other day, he's into this shit.
Oh, yeah?
And I was helping him with his stuff, and we were talking, and he was like, "Oh, it's totally aliens." And I gave him a high five, and I was like, "Why?" We Googled some shit. He's like, "Look at that stone." He's like, "That's like 40 people had to move that one stone." He's like, "How did they get it up to the top? If you had a stone that heavy?" He goes, "With ropes." He's like, "No, that's no fucking way."
No.
And in Ancient Aliens, everybody thinks that guy with the hairs, Jojo Tukalos, is crazy.
Well,
but
plug that show.
Yeah, Ancient Aliens.
Yeah, Ancient Aliens
on the History Channel.
Yeah.
He literally, they talk about that and in physics.
It's very, very interesting.
How impossible it would have been to do that. Now, okay, you get 50 dudes to move a fucking block, right?
Yeah, but how?
But even if they did, let's say that they did.
And they had wheels. Let's say they had wheels in a fucking flatbed truck.
Yeah, all right. Even if they had that stuff, which they didn't, and even if they had 100 dudes moving this one stone, they put it into place. They build this pyramid. Wow, that looks really cool. But how the fuck do you How the fuck do you make one of those? How do you make 3 of those? And how do you line them up mathematically accurate to a star that you can't even fucking see? That doesn't make any sense. It does not.
And how did they make them
sense.
so perfect so that they would all line up? And talk about Puma Punku and.
But they're lining up across the world, not just in Egypt. We're talking about these pyramids are lining up mathematically to pyramids on the other side of the fucking world.
That's right.
To cultures that are centuries apart.
Yeah.
To cultures they didn't even know existed. So it doesn't make any sense.
No,
it does not add up.
It doesn't add up.
You
There's
know-
no way they could have done it. I watched one of the Ancient Aliens episodes, and it talked about this big ass boulder that they found. I forgot where it was, and it was like 100 tons, something crazy, and they needed a 1,000,000-pound crane with like some ridiculous amount of tires underneath it, and it moved at 5 miles an hour, and they had to bring it 100 miles to where they wanted to put it in some museum. It was some like famous rock. It was huge, and they needed a 1,000,000-pound crane just to get it off the ground and transport it. And it was literally so massive that there was like 2 or 3 big wheel trucks that had to help move this thing on the crane, and there were people walking on by the side of it because it was moving so slow they couldn't move it. You're telling me that a civilization with zero power. Now, I don't even know how. Now, let's talk about how did they even see inside their pyramids where there was no light? Number one,
Right.
how did they even see in there to make it?
Fire.
Fire goes out if there's no oxygen.
Right.
And it's documented that deep inside the pyramids there is zero oxygen.
That's what I'm just saying.
There is no light.
I'm just playing devil's advocate for a second because I knew you were going to
Exactly.
say that.
And they even and I'm going on a tangent here, but they even tried the mirror thing where they would set up mirrors at each turn
To the light,
and
yeah.
it only goes in about 100 feet, and that's it.
Yeah.
The light doesn't shine that far in as far as mirrors go. It loses it. But you're telling me with no power, these people were able to build a pyramid that we would have trouble building right now.
Right.
That we would not. It would take us years to build this pyramid, and the fact that they made these immense megalithic blocks, sometimes with stone that was quarried hundreds of miles away, not even anywhere near them.
I know,
because in
right?
the desert, how many stones do you see?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like, where did the stones
Where
come
did
from?
the stones
and
come
how
from?
are they all perfect blocks?
And how are they perfect blocks, and where's the rest of it? And there's actually documented proof now that there are people who are taking photos from the air of the entire Egyptian plateau, right? And they're finding more pyramids underneath the sand because there are certain key markers they're looking for that have helped them find the big pyramids that they have now. But they're finding other pyramids under the sand because of the markers they see, the formations that they're seeing.
That's like AVP where they found that pyramid like
Under the fucking dude,
yeah.
I'm telling you, life, art imitates life. Life imitates art. It's what it is.
Yeah, seriously.
So it's like the craziest stuff happened. If you don't believe in aliens, at least believe that there may have been civilizations before our civilization that have thrived and been way more technologically advanced than us and have died.
Right.
And died out. And we're finding the only thing that stands the test of time is what?
You tell me.
Stone.
Stone. Okay. Yeah.
Stone is the only thing that stands the test of time.
No,
Yeah,
it's
it breaks up.
it's actually really true though.
Yeah, I mean, and what is the pyramids made out of? Stone.
Yeah.
If all our stupid ass computers and fucking cell phones and dumbass fucking, everything, houses, all this wood and mortar and everything, that all crumbles and turns back to dust.
Right.
Just like we do, right? It's all natural stuff, and so is stone. But stone lasts forever.
Right.
It doesn't break down unless you break it down.
Right.
And physically, and like the only structures we find are the ones that are made out of stone. And if you think about it, if there was one nuclear blast in Boston, there would not be one building left standing. But anything made out of stone would be vitrified and turned into glass.
Yeah,
and that
true.
would still be there.
Yeah.
And it would still be there. So, like, to me, if you don't even believe in aliens, but think about how long people have been around, it doesn't add up. There are things being found and carbon dated and millions of years old that have been found that are human remains or like pots.
Yeah, pot
That
yeah,
are
I've seen
millions
that,
of years
yeah.
old or hundreds of
Those are
thousands
the coolest
of years
things
old.
to see, yeah.
Yeah, and that's like mainstream science. We're not talking about like fantasy
it's,
here.
no, it's
and
legit.
UFOs here. We're talking about mainstream archaeological finds that are carbon dated, that are hundreds of thousands of years old.
Right.
And not just things that are 5,000 years old. Like we've been led to believe that our civilization is only 5,000 years old. Come on.
Right.
I mean, it just doesn't add up. And you clearly, everyone who's listening to this can clearly see where we're going with this. It's a big mystery that we're both very interested in. And it's fantastic. It makes me so excited because I love that mystery. What keeps you going other than a challenge? I love challenges. This is a challenge to me. Finding out new stuff.
Dude, I love this stuff, man, because it's like it really is. It's interesting. Like I don't think that there's anybody who can just come out and say I have the definitive answers.
Nope.
Because nobody really knows for sure, and unless some alien comes down and is like, hey, this is the deal. I'm about to blow your minds. And he's got like all these facts to back it up and videos that whatever stuff like that. I mean, that would be crazy. But I mean, this. I don't know, like this podcast is the reason why I wanted to do this, man, because I knew you were going to talk about all this stuff. I know that you're extremely passionate about it. I'm passionate about it. I'm telling you, I told you it's just going to be very conversational, man.
Yeah, it's great.
It's a lot of fun. I don't think we've talked this much about aliens in a long time. Like we meet up and we talk about aliens, and then we ended up like playing Xbox or something, But I'm telling you, we do a lot of this stuff on our own time where we talk about this stuff, but actually getting to spend a good chunk of time just discussing it has been a lot of fun. So, dude, is there anything else that you want to bring up that we haven't brought up yet?
No, I just think it's for anyone who listens to this, and I'm not sure how many people listen to it, and I hope that it influences people who are maybe not so disposed to thinking that this is true. To just the point is to not always believe what you hear and what you see. There are other things out there that are the truth. Our own government lies to us all the time. And I'm not just being a conspiracy theorist here. It's documented that we've been lied to. I would like you to take, for example, the Food and Drug Administration, also the food that we ingest every single day.
Processed, yeah.
If you just watched the documentary, it's called Fed Up.
What about Fork and Knife? That's another good one.
I didn't see that one, but then again, we've been made to believe that fat in our diet is bad, and instead they replaced fat with sugar, and now you're seeing a huge rise of diabetes and obesity in children and in adults, and it's directly because of the government and what they've told us we need to eat, and it's just crazy. Now we're getting off on a tangent.
And I will say one thing, just because we're in National Autism Month, there's been a lot of studies that have come out that said that if you go back like 50 years ago, there were very, very little, a small percentage of kids that actually had autism. And they say that it's directly correlated to the chemicals that are in our food now, why more and more kids are actually starting to have autism.
Yep.
So it's very interesting and something to think about being in, National Autism Month. Like, do the research and look up this stuff. It's real. It is real. It's scary. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's about doing the research for yourself. Don't just think that something is true because the government tells you, or your friend tells you, or, Dan Amaral tells you that aliens are real. Do the research for yourself. I think that's the most important message out of all of this. I know this is just for fun and it's a UFO thing. We're both so passionate about it, but it's more about like finding out for yourself and doing your own research on whatever you're interested in or scared of or passionate about, and don't just read or just believe what people say, because there's a lot of bad people around. There's a lot of bad people in this world, and starting with the government, there's a lot of bad people in government, and there's a reason for it, because a lot of it has to do with money and special interests and stuff like that. But just do the research on your own, find out for yourself, believe in what you've read in the sources. Really try to find sources that are reputable and find out this information. And it has nothing to do with aliens. It has everything to do with whatever you're passionate about and what you think, and do your own stuff and open your mind up, because the worst thing you can do is be closed-minded and say, that'll never happen to me, or, oh my God, that's not even true, or that can never happen. And
look it up. It's there, man.
Everything's there.
You live in an age where you have the internet, which is an amazing window to everything you want to know and all the theories you want to challenge and stuff like that. So take the time to research it. And I agree with Dan wholeheartedly. I think if you're interested in this or you question it, then hey, if you think everything we said is bullshit, then I question it, or I challenge you rather to Google it and look at the stuff that we've talked about and see if we're full of shit, because we're only talking about stuff that we've read and things that we've seen and stuff that we've researched, and it's just interests us. So, take a look because you'll see the same thing that we have. Definitely.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about. It's enlightening yourself to what's going on and around you, because a lot of us get stuck in our cell phones and our iPads and our computers and our jobs, and 9-to-5 jobs. We're working 9 to 5. We go home, we're tired. We don't really do anything. And also the mainstream media is awful as well. They only they're really. I mean, I know it sounds like a conspiracy theory, and it is in some aspects, but they are only fed information that people want you to know. Right. They don't always tell the whole truth, and there are a lot of other things out there that you can see the whole truth. Definitely. And that's all I'm gonna say. Dude, I completely agree with you, man. There's some good points. I think we've made a lot of good points tonight. I think we've discussed a ton of stuff. A lot of stuff I think that people who are listening to this are gonna probably take some time to digest it all. And maybe do some research, and maybe we've kind of, sparked that interest. Yeah, we've sparked an interest, or triggered some people to kind of look into this stuff as well, and maybe spread the word. So, I just want to thank you, man, for coming on tonight. This was a blast, as I said it would be. I'm so psyched awesome. You came on, dude. The truth is out there. Yeah, man, definitely. I want to believe. It was awesome, man. Great time. So thank you for inviting me. Oh, of course, dude. Anytime. And hopefully I'll be back. I would like to do this again. Definitely, of course. I don't have a red beard though. Mine's brown and white. I don't either, man, because I shaved my wedding, so it'll come back soon. But I want to say, if I didn't say earlier, Dan's my cousin, so we go way back. So we talk about this stuff all the time. But thank you for coming on, man. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And I am going to be releasing probably early next month a podcast where Don Carrara and I get together and we discuss 80s horror. So please make sure that you tune in for that. And I will catch you guys next month on Tony Flyin Solo. Make sure you keep checking out Red Beard Podcast. Thanks again, Dan, for coming on. Thank you very much. Have a good one. Later, guys. Later.